It was a rough day at the office for the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's tell the story of Joe Burrow's and the Bengals' series of unfortunate events.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battered, bruised, and defeated, the Cincinnati Bengals lose to the, almost said San Diego, Los Angeles Chargers, 41-22 in Cincinnati, in front of roughly 51,000 fans out of their capacity 65,000 seat stadium. Not a lot went well in this game, but there were some things that went well. I don't think we're going to start by trying to paint this as a moral victory or anything like this. They lost players to injury. That sucks. Joe Burrow has a pinky dislocation he's going to be dealing with on his throwing hand for the foreseeable future. That sucks. They let the game get away from them in a big way. That's awful. 41-22 in a game that, they definitely had chances in.
They did. They had chances. It's wild because, after the game, Zach Taylor talks and he defined it as sloppy. The Bengals played sloppy. And it's a good way to talk about it because I think they were sloppy Joes were served multiple. And, it just fits that, two of the guys involved were named Joe Mixon and Joe Burrow. But Jamar Chase, what the hell are you doing? Zach Taylor, he took accountability and he should. And for the life of me, I can't understand how you come out of a timeout ahead of a 2-point conversion and you get called for delay of game. That should be impossible. That should be, I was trying to think of the scenario where that would happen, and I got it. Jake, if you and I were playing Madden and the pizza delivery guy showed up and took way too long to give me my change back, and I had called a timeout instead of pressing pause just because I hit select instead of start, and okay, so I burned a timeout, not a big deal. That's like the only time that could happen. And instead, no pizza, no delivery guy. Just Joe Burrow as animated and frustrated at the end of that first half, and really for most of that second quarter, as I've seen him since he became quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals. So it was a wild day, and yet despite all of it, they had the ball in Chargers territory, down by 2 in the fourth quarter. And That's the part that's crazy because they really did have a chance. And I thought there was a part of me, and I didn't say it out loud. I thought, man, that wacky, crazy 38 to 35, and I forget, what did I say? 37, 34, something like that. Prediction. I was like, it's going to be around there. And unfortunately, Mixon fumbled, and that ended the game.
You're not all wrong, though, with your prediction. You said you thought it would be a crazy game with a lot of turnovers, and it was. And it's just frustrating for the Bengals that they probably come away from this game, at least I come away from this game feeling like they at least forced the turnovers that they had. They had a couple nice tackles that jarred the football free from Austin Eckler, and they forced those fumbles, and they recovered those fumbles, and they took the ball away. A nice play from Awuzie to recover and take the ball away on a jump ball. And so I felt like those were well earned. And credit the Los Angeles Chargers for capitalizing on their opportunities, but Jamar Chase turned a touchdown into an interception.
Yep.
And
then they scored.
And prior to that, then they scored. And then even prior to that, the strip sack that Burrow dislocates his pinky on, bad play for Jonah, for sure. Yeah, maybe Burrow can get rid of the ball earlier. Maybe. I haven't seen a replay showing downfield yet, but judging from what people that were at the game told me and what the announcer said, sound like he had a deep crosser open. You could also argue that he should have taken a step up. But Jonah Williams gets beat. So here you have, on your first 2 drives, 3 of your best offensive players in Jonah Williams, Joe Burrows, sorta, kinda, and Jamar Chase killing you. And then you later in the game have Joe Mixon giving up a touchdown. And you should never say those words. You should never say your running back gave up a touchdown, but he did. The Bengals at that point in the game, using Ben Baldwin's EPA model, rbsdm.com that I often reference for box score information and EPA, that model had the Bengals at 60% to win at the point before Joe Mixon
They were
fumbles the
almost in
football.
field goal range. Yeah, they were almost in field goal range to take the lead. You
Right.
know, it was that close. You know, and Money's got a big leg, even though he missed that extra point. That's the crazy part to me. So yeah, you said you should never be able to say the phrase "your running back," you know, scored for
Gave
the
up
other
a
team
touchdown.
or gave up a touchdown. Yeah, you should never be able to say your wide receiver threw an interception.
Yeah.
But that's what Jamar. Come on, man. I mean, that dude beat him so bad. Jamar Chase had so much separation that he bobbled that thing up in the air and was still able to make the tackle on the guy because he finally caught up to him. Like, what is I? And he had a couple other drops. T had a drop. It was a sloppy game, and they still had a shot, and they didn't. They didn't take advantage. And the worst part about it is what you mentioned at the top. So it's not just that you lose and you fall to 7-5 and fail to win 3 straight for the first time since 2015. It's and lose to a team that you're competing for a potential wild card spot with in the AFC. It's that you're banged up. It's that now we're on Joe Burrow watch daily this week. It's that we're on Chidobe Awuzie, his foot. How's he going to be? All of these guys, right? Logan Wilson. Oh my gosh, if Logan Wilson is out, you know, like so it's, and we can get more into that, but that's the part of it that stings even worse is the effects of this game might last much longer than just today.
Yeah. And I think there's a whole segment we can talk about injuries. I want to rip Sean Hockley and his crew, not for necessarily any calls or miscalls, although probably some of that too, but they did a terrible job. And
I apologize.
I'm going to come back to that. Calling a touchdown on an interception. I mean, and that's like the least of his issues in this game. We're going to come back to that because, you know, not necessarily the most important thing, but I do think that the officials have some culpability in Cheeto's injury. Anyway, I'll circle back to that a little bit later. The other thing that we need to talk about in terms of just things that went wrong, and we'll get to the defense. The defense was very Jekyll and Hyde in this game.
Yeah.
And I think we'll come back to this as well, but they had a stretch where they were like kind of up and down. They had a stretch where they were dominant. Then they had a stretch where they had nothing left and they were too depleted maybe with injuries and ran out of gas or something. We'll come back to the defense. But the other thing on the offense we need to talk about is the absence of Trey Hopkins and Riley Reef was felt in a significant way, even though the Chargers lost Joey Bosa in the first quarter of this game to a concussion, a head injury, they called it. It was Uche Nwosu and Chris Rumpf and a bunch of guys that should not be giving you problems that when the Bengals had to drop back pass late in the game after Joe Mixon's fumble, when they were desperate, this is a repeated flaw with this team at this point where when they need to pass and they are in pure, we need 2 scores to catch up, they have no chance because they can't pass block no matter who's in there. But today in particular, I think missing Hopkins led to some bad snaps at times. Hill had 2 penalties, blew up a run play once, and I think doesn't have the chemistry with the guards on either side of him. Isaiah Prince had a bad penalty at a bad time, and it's just a lot to overcome. But on top of that, they need to figure out the protection stuff. And, you know, we talked all week about game script, James, and all of these factors, the offensive line penalties early, the strip sack early on what should have been a shot play, an explosive play, the interception that turns a touchdown into an interception. The game script is just totally upended at that point. And right when the Bengals almost got it back and Joe Mixon starting to run the ball, averaged 2.8 yards per carry, by the way, he fumbled. And the game's over. And so it got away from them in a lot of ways. I came away from the game thinking they beat themselves in a lot of ways. The Chargers certainly took advantage of their opportunities, but you have those kinds of giveaways from your best players, and that's a significant uphill battle. We'll come back and continue to talk about the game. We got defense. I want to complain about Hockley and the refs. We've got injuries to circle back to coming up next.
During halftime, when you were probably venting, maybe you wanted to flip channels or maybe watch one of your on-demand favorites, or I don't know, switch it to Locked On Bengals on YouTube. Regardless, it's much easier when you have one device that does everything for you, and you can get everything together, your on-demand favorites, your live sporting events, everything together with DirecTV Stream. You've heard us talk about them. They bring your live TV, your on-demand favorites together like never before. So you don't have to juggle remotes. You don't have to use multiple devices to watch what you want when you want. You can do it all with one thing. DirecTV Stream. So check them out right now. DirecTV.com. They're going to help you get rid of the clutter and the confusion, and it's going to be so much easier with DirecTV Stream. So DirecTV.com. That's DirecTV.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package.
James, let's maybe go defense next, and we'll wrap up with injuries, and maybe I'll rant a little bit. We can both rant about Sean Hockley.
Yeah,
I mean, you were there in person. You had to endure those delays in the stadium, but let's go defense, because the defense early in this game was put in some obviously very rough situations. The Chargers start with the ball, and the special teams lets up right away. And you think about the players that they're missing in this game. Darius Phillips, Chris Evans, two guys that are starters on the kickoff coverage unit. Evans earning that role more recently. He's been doing it for 4 weeks. Both of those guys out. The very first play of the game is a 48-yard kickoff return from the end zone to set the Chargers up at the 45. So immediately the defense is on their back foot, and credit the Chargers. They had a nice scripted drive. Like the Bengals, yes, they get the Chargers into a 3rd and 9. And two of the most impressive throws from Justin Herbert in this game, in my opinion, James, were on 3rd downs, 4th downs on this drive. The 3rd and 9, he rolls left. He fires an absolute seed, like a 60-mile-per-hour pass. Somehow that gets to Keenan Allen on 3rd down for a 10-yard gain, 1st down. Mm-hmm. And it's not like the Bengals are in bad position on that play, but that's where Herbert's arm strength shows up. And then on 4th down, the Bengals have another opportunity to get off the field, 4th and goal from the 4.
Yeah.
And Herbert, again, Logan Wilson's right there. And he just can't react quickly enough because there's so much speed on the ball. And Keenan Allen, to his credit, can catch fastballs. Then the Bengals fumble. The Chargers, credit the defense, only gain 4 yards, settle for a field goal. Then there's an interception. Then the defense kind of buckles. Then the Bengals punt. And then the defense, to their credit, forces their own punt. But early, let's see, what do we have here? Touchdown, field goal, touchdown, punt, touchdown on the Chargers' first 4 or 5 drives. So they had some struggles early, and it wasn't all their fault. They were in bad situations, but they couldn't hold up early. Then they made the adjustment, started getting takeaways, started getting pressure, but a very up and down game for this defense. And then they lost guys, right? Mm-hmm. And that's going to be the thing that we watch going forward. Logan Wilson goes off on a cart. Their best corner, Chidobe Awuzie, is injured after an interception return, had an injured foot, didn't make it back. Sounded like he was trying to get back into the game, so hopefully not so severe there, but really up and down game for this defense. At moments they looked dominant, at other moments they looked very dominated.
Yeah, you're right. And from the jump, right, the get-go, the Chargers receive it, they go down, and it was the Mike Williams show early. I mean, this dude was just high pointing the ball, going up and being really physical, and he had a catch over Mike Hilton, had a catch over Cheeto, and it was like, all right, this is going to be a high-scoring game. This is going to be one of those games, and it's the good news is, and maybe part of this is because what they lost, so I'm feeling better about it, but it felt like you said it too. They adjusted. They started to have more success. They were getting more pressure. Then they start to force some turnovers. And despite losing guys, they played better as the game went on. When the pressure, literally pressure on them was, hey, if we give up a score here, we're probably not getting back in this game. Our quarterback's hurt. Scoring's going to be potentially limited, even though it wasn't at times. And they buckled up or fixed it or whatever you want to say and started to play tougher. That being said, there were still so many times where they just got lost downfield. Jesse Bates just doesn't know where the ball is with, was it Guyton, I believe, that caught that touchdown. And I had a perfect vantage point. Bates is on like the 5-yard line and has no idea where the ball is. I mean, it's like this. And Guyton and it's a great throw by Herbert, but Bates was unable to make a play on it. And that's the type of play that I want him to make. By the way, I get it.
He got spun around. He ended up singled up on Guyton. Guyton gives him a little fake inside. Bates turns inside, has to do a full speed turn. He's 5 yards behind Guyton. And the only reason that there's DPI and that he can make a play on the ball is because it's a 66-yard throw from where Herbert is on the field to where Guyton ends up catching the ball. So that lets Bates get back into the play, and he never finds the ball in the air, to your point. Could have been an interception.
That's what I'm saying.
People are praising Justin Herbert for the throw, which to me, it's an impossible throw to actually lead the guy because it's a little bit late and it's so far. But instead of like, oh, Jesse Bates just penalized Justin Herbert for throwing a Hail Mary, it's a touchdown and a DPI to boot because, Bates was in a spin cycle. And to your point, he couldn't find the guy in the air.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So like those are the type of plays where it's like, man, make it. Make it. I get it. It's hard to be singled up on him. It's hard to be singled up on Jared Cook. And I know they asked him to do that at times. Like, it's tough. Like on a third down and Cook had a reception. Like, it's hard. But you're supposed to be so that was the problem, especially with the game going the way it was. But overall, like, the defense adjusted. I think Lou Anarumo did a good job. And yeah, it says 41 on the board. It's not 41 the defense gave up. Now, obviously, the 7 that went the other way with Mixon's fumble, but even a couple of the other ones were tough situations, like the field goal, right? They give up the field goal after the strip sack. That's a win for the defense, but it's still 3 points on the board, and 17 total points off turnovers is what the Chargers scored. So it's overall, you're right, mixed bag from the defense. Trey Hendrickson extended his sack streak for what it's worth. A Bengals record, 8 games with the sack. So good for him. But not many bright spots when you consider everything that happened injury wise too. Because it's one thing to put together a decent half with backups and guys like that and trying to hold down the fort and get it, disguise things and make things work. It's a whole nother thing if you have to go against San Francisco next week without Chidobe Awuzie and without Logan Wilson. And
it's a good thing that Vernon Hargreaves got his first game day active today and was the replacement for Chido. It wasn't the guy from Seattle, Flowers.
Trey Flowers?
It wasn't Trey Flowers that took over on the other outside corner. It was Hargreaves, and Hargreaves was in on a turnover play. So what we should credit the defense for is those middle drives, right? So they give up some relatively short touchdown drives where the Bengals had bad punts or after turnovers or things like this. But then they go fumble, interception, fumble, punt. 5 straight possessions where they either get a turnover or they get a 6-play negative -1 yard drive, punt, 3-play negative -3 yard drive, punt. And this is when the Bengals are starting to come back. So they have this stretch in the middle of the game where if it's not a fumble touchdown that Joe Mixon and the Bengals unfortunately give up, followed by a negative -10 yard play and a punt, because at this point they're drop back passing and having issues in protection, then we're probably talking Bengals win, because like I said, they were putting themselves back in the driver's seat. They were finding their way in the running game. They were ready to go take a lead, and they don't. And so it again for me is like, you see the 41 on the board. How much of that is really on the defense? Maybe 24, maybe 27. And then you think about the Bengals' opportunities and how different this game could have been. How different is this game if Burrow throws the ball instead of getting stripped on the first drive of the game and completes a deep crosser to Jamar Chase? How different is the game if Jamar Chase just catches the ball? Even if they get a field goal, even if he doesn't house it, which he's going to.
I think he does house it. Yeah, I think he houses out of it.
Even if he doesn't, and they only get 3 out of those 2 plays, that's +6 for the Bengals, -10 for the Chargers. And then the entire game goes differently, and the entire game script changes. But because of what happens at the beginning of this game, reminds me a little bit of the Dallas game last year, right? Not that this is a game, this is after Burrow's injury, but you fumble, they give the ball away in their first 3 drives that game. And out of their last 4 games now, James, their first drive has ended in a turnover 3 out of those 4 games. They have 1 touchdown to show for opening drives and 3 turnovers. And man, you're making it hard on yourself when you do that. Let's finish up with the injury outlook. There is some good news here. some of the guys came back. We've talked about some of the others, and then I'm going to rant about Sean Hockley at some point here. So let's finish up there.
Well, the good news is that Built Bars, win, lose, or draw, are here for you. And I know it's the holiday season, and you want to dive into holiday cookies or Christmas cookies or whatever it is. There's a lot of unhealthy stuff out there. What if I told you that you could have a chocolate bar that is a protein bar and is healthy and has healthy macros and is going to help you get a little fitter this holiday season? Well, you can do that right now with Built Bar. I have a Built Bar every single day. I already had one today. It might be a 2 Built Bar day because the beauty of Built Bars, they help you recover from whatever it is, your workouts, your midday lulls, whatever it is. And they come in a bunch of different delicious flavors, whether it's double chocolate, cookies and cream, peanut butter, brownie. So you need to check them out right now because they're high in protein, low in sugar, low in calories, perfect for you. Check them out at built.com. Use promo code LOCK15. You're going to get 15% off your next order. Again, use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com.
This episode of Locked On Bengals is also brought to you by BetOnline.ag. They have you covered for all of your props, odds, and lines. They've got more than they've ever had before as football season and hopefully the Bengals continue their march to the playoffs, or in the Bengals case, bounce back in their quest to find one of those AFC playoff spots. BetOnline remains your number one spot for any sport you're interested in, whether it's the NBA, whether it's college basketball, the college football playoff featuring the Cincinnati Bearcats, or the NFL the rest of the way. Their new updated website has everything you need to make any bet you could ever imagine. Go sign up today. You'll get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit using promo code Locked On. Again, that's promo code Locked On for a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit at BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. All right, James. So the quick injury recap before we complain about Sean Hockley, I guess. Logan Wilson out for indeterminate amount of time, I would say. Carted off. No comment from Coach Taylor after the game, was quickly declared out. Chidobe Awuzie, the other one that's quite concerning to me, had the foot injury, went from questionable coming out of the half to doubtful to return, and obviously did not return. Mm-hmm. He had to be carried off the field. And maybe that was just the quickest way to get him to the tent. They carried Cheeto off the field. Those two guys are important to this Bengals defense. And the good news, I guess, on the other side is Joe Burrow was able to finish the game. He seems very confident he's not going to miss time. He thinks that the pinky dislocated and popped back in on its own and then started swelling up. I imagine they gave him some sort of injection at halftime that allowed him to finish the game without a ton of pain, but the swelling was obvious. So that seems like it's going to be a pain management and functionality management situation, but sounds like he's going to avoid missing time, which, if he's missing time, put a nail in the season. I would say if it's more than even a week. Joe Mixon returns to the game. He said he had a neck injury, so seems he will be okay. And Samaje Perine, who got rolled up on earlier in the game, looked like he might have sustained a knee injury of some sort, came back and was able to finish the game. So those are some pluses, but some concerns. Marcus Bailey also left. That's why Logan Wilson was playing special teams. I believe he took Marcus Bailey's spot for that position on punt coverage, and then he got hurt. So you're down to Joe Bachie, Jermaine Pratt, and the free agent they signed, whose name I forget. Clay Johnston at linebacker now. And at corner, you're now down your top two outside corners, depending on Cheeto's status. So those things are quite concerning looking ahead to some of the offenses they play, because it doesn't get a whole lot easier than what they saw today.
No, it doesn't, especially next week. I mean, the 49ers are going to want to pound the ball and really test that front seven. That's what they do. And we know how they, Kyle Shanahan likes to run the ball. And so we'll see there. We have plenty of time to talk about that. I'm a little more concerned about Joe Burrow than he's letting on. I think it depends on how that pinky responds. I watched him try to – so he was doing everything he could to stay in the game. So I don't know how much they showed on the broadcast. Did they show a lot of this on the broadcast, or
Yeah, so
But
you could see them trying, different tapes and gloves and him grimacing in pain on the sideline. And, he seemed to be in
did
the
the ball
least
slip
amount
out of
of
his hands?
that seemed to happen once. Yeah, they,
Okay.
they showed that. It seemed like he was in the least amount of discomfort with no glove. And in the second half, it didn't seem like he was in a ton of pain compared to what they showed going into halftime. That seemed to be when he was in the most pain.
Yeah. So, which makes sense if they injected him with something, which I'm sure they did, like you said. That being said, yeah, like what if it swells up more? Like what if from all the hits he took, 11 quarterback hits, not including the ones where he ran and got hit, 6 sacks, like who knows? So like that's the tough part is it's real easy to say, oh, I think I'm good. Like he said that he's like, it's my ankle, nothing ice won't fix. It's going to be okay. Cause I asked him, cause he came back in, but he never looked like and was always limping after the play. And he's like, oh, nothing ice won't fix. Well, sometimes that's what young players say when they think that it's going to go a certain way, but it might not. And so that's the thing that we're going to have to be on watch for. How does Joe Burrow, when he comes back, by the time you're listening to this, honestly, a lot of Bengals fans, it's probably Monday morning. When he's at Paul Brown Stadium on Monday morning, how is it? Is he able to grip a ball all the way? Does he have the pinky, the strength in the pinky? Has the swelling gone down? Maybe. It might be the other way where it does heal. It's back in place and it's starting to already heal. And because he was a fast healer, we know that it's been talked about a lot when he's dealt with injuries in his past. So we'll see. But you're right. Like they need him. They're not beating the 49ers with Brandon Allen. Sorry, not happening. You'll see 11 in the box. It'll be 11 in the box. And that it's just, and so that's the part of it. And so hopefully he's okay. Now, that being said, once we get more on Logan Wilson, once we hear more on Chidobe Awuzie, we'll go from there. But the Wilson one, they're already so damn thin at linebacker. Like at least at corner, they did go out and get Hargraves, and they did go out and get Trey Flowers and Darius Phillips, who was an inactive today. And I don't necessarily think that was injury related. We'll see. I got lost into the post-game press conference because there's the actual game to talk about, but I'll probably ask Zach on Monday. But there's at least some kind of depth. There's bodies at least. There aren't even bodies at linebacker. And that's the part that's scary. Are you going to go out into free agency? Maybe we'll have to take a look at that depending on what Logan Wilson is, what his prognosis is.
Yeah, they'll probably have to go get a guy off a practice squad or something just to field enough bodies in that room. They currently have 3 healthy linebackers on the roster, pending Logan Wilson. Obviously hope for the best there. So playoff odds take a big hit. We talked about how important this game was. We'll talk more about the playoff implications tomorrow. We'll look ahead to the next couple of games, and they're going to have to win. San Francisco, by the way, could very well be a likely NFC playoff team. They could be become one of the few NFC teams that looks like they can string together wins, because the NFC has been such a top heavy conference this year. Currently, as we record, leading Seattle at halftime 23-21, and then Denver also in the thick of this muddled AFC middle. So we'll talk more about that. But Sean Hockley, man, like I have a number of issues with him in this game, and I'm not here to complain about calls. It took him 5 minutes it felt like pick up a flag. It took him another 5 minutes to decide, oh wait, no, you can't challenge that. And the crew's inability to blow the whistle when Cheeto was obviously down by contact leads to the play continuing and Cheeto getting hurt. And I know that's maybe like a little bit much, blaming refs for an injury, but like, come on, just like do your job. Don't hog airtime like your dad. Don't make it an ump show like we see all too often in baseball. Just be efficient, get in and out of your calls, and move on with your life. And don't let plays get extended when they're very obviously dead. I think I even heard a whistle on that play, and they just didn't blow the whistle again to reinforce it. No, this play is dead, guys. You can stop running. And anyway, that's my rant about Hockley.
The ruling on the field is a touchdown. Wait, what, Bell? Oh, interception. It's an interception. Thanks. What the? I agree with you. And then the challenge situation was wild. False start. And then so he calls it. He goes through the whole call. Yeah. Then the side judge or whoever comes up to him, oh no, actually, they challenged it. And then 5 minutes goes by. We can't challenge this because of whatever it was, a dead ball or whatever it was. Can't challenge it. But the challenge flag came down before the false start. So now the false start doesn't. Dude, that took way too long. And so, yeah, I agree with you. It was ridiculous. It gave me a little more time to write at times, like in the fourth quarter when he was a doofus there. And I knew the game was then over because they were still, like, even after the Mixon fumble, they were still around. I just think the offense had, all the air was let out of the balloon, and that was it. But, yeah, what a bleep show. Sloppy. Maybe that was part of what Zach Taylor was talking about with the sloppiness, the officials as well.
Pretty rough game to watch. The injuries made it less fun. The way they lost made it very, very unfun. I think for me personally, I imagine a lot of you feel the same way, and hopefully things turn around. They've got to, as Joe Mixon said, get on to the next one, and they got to start winning games because if they don't, this playoff hopes that they had will quickly start to evaporate. So they've got to win some games here in the next couple weeks, or the tenor of this show, which has been ready to talk playoffs for a couple weeks now, is going to change. And hopefully they finish the season the way they started it. They started the season 5-2. Since then they are 3-4, something like that. Anyway, that math doesn't check out.
5-2. No, they're 2-3 since then.
2-3 since then.
They lost 2, won 2, lost 1. By the way, speaking of runs, just how about that? 24-0, 24-20, a run of 24, a run of 22, a run of 17. Man.
The Bengals could have finished their run today and could have won this game. I would like to see these teams play again. I actually like the matchup for the Bengals after watching what I saw today, if things don't get so crazy and out of hand. But at the same time, James, you saw crazy and out of hand coming. So game script didn't go their way. They fall to 7-5. They're now 3-3 at home. Hopefully more fans can get in the stands for the end of the season. And hopefully they start winning some games. But that's going to do it. Until next time, Bengals fans, we'll be back tomorrow. We'll look at the playoff picture. We'll see how things have reset after the rest of the NFL finishes their games on Sunday. Until then, have a good one.